just to break down, because I don't fully understand the architectural structure of how you become an architecture. I always just heard the general notion that it's a very long process.
Yeah.
What is that like? How long is that process, and what process have you been through? I know you went to Liverpool.
Yeah.
Did you study architecture? Is that what you studied? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So you study architecture undergrad, which is 3 years.
Yeah.
So that's the first degree, and then you do a year out placement, where you're working in a practice as a part one, and then you go back to uni to do your masters, which is 2 years, and then you work. So now, like my stage now, I'm working full time.
Can I close the window because it's getting cold?
We've got a bit of
and then
it's fine.
And then so part two, doing that. That's me now, and then so then I have to do part three, which is like you're at uni, but you're also working as well, which is so it's kind of a balance of the two.
Yeah.
And then after that, you're an architect. but
So in total, how long is that process in terms of years?
I think in total, people do it in like 9 years, I'd say. 9 years is like, you hear 7 years, but 7 years is like if you're very efficient, like you are like the best, like as in like everything just falls into place, everything just works. But I'd say 8 to 9 years.
And in terms of, you already mentioned that you feel like you've kind of find your niche in terms of what you're interested in communities and that kind of housing. What was the inspiration behind that niche?
I guess firstly it's because I'm interested in terms of like buildings, I'm interested in social housing in general, and housing because we all need houses, we all experience houses, we all have our definition of what a house needs, attributes, aspects, qualities, spaces, all of that. And so it's always changing, it's always evolving, and that's interesting for me. But then also on a kind of wider scale, the idea of communities, and why communities aren't working, where they need to improve, how they can be integrated into like a city, that side of things as well, like that, this idea of, a lot of the time, for example, it might be a bit of a generalization, but where you have a bad community, there's likely to be social housing there. So social housing in itself has a lot of flaws, or hasn't been, I guess, it's a bit of a trend now, but previously people weren't really seeing it as a kind of area they can go into, or they don't really understand where social housing needs to go. But now there's this opportunity where you can introduce social housing, but also that it can't just be housing, it has to contribute to a community, and then this community has to contribute to the city and the urban side of things. So it's like a knock-on effect really, from like very small scale onto like a larger scale, and that's what I'm interested in. So it all kind of interlinks really.
Absolutely, that's interesting. And in terms of what we're trying to do on this series and ease in general, is community. So I'm interested to hear how you kind of define community, and how in what you're doing in your work in your architecture spaces, brick and mortar, it's that physical structure of community, where we're going to talk about art. You're creating a world and translating something in a more expressive way, and I wonder, is there a link in, is there a balance maybe that's offered, that's brought to you through expressing a community in a virtual format, through sharing it on Instagram and whatnot, but also through creating stuff? I feel like that's maybe going to give you a balance in the future. But also, what is your definition of community? Because for me, I always initially assumed, thought of community as a very local thing in terms of physical touching, as you say, brick and mortar. But through moving around a lot, going to America, going to different places, I realised that my community is the people on Instagram, people on Facebook, people on whoever who I'm interacting with and coming together with. How do you view community, and how is, you've mentioned it's what you're interested in terms of a physical space, but I know it connects with your art. So how is that important to you, and especially just from your background?
Sure. I think community is everything, man. I think community really makes, I can't think of urban design or architecture without thinking about community. Like, they're both kind of connected. For me, good architecture and good urban design involves communities, creating communities, creating opportunities to socialize. You know, for me, a community is like if you like an established community, let's say, right? So you have people who are the generations of people who have lived there. You know, you have your grandfather there who's lived there since he was like 20, and then he wakes up and then he goes to the coffee shop, which is there, where he's read his newspaper there for the past every Monday for like the past 6 years. And then after that he goes to see his children, and then plays with grandchildren at the local park, which is a green space. And then after that, the kids go to like school, so you have all these different aspects which are within a community, and this is they're all kind of interlinked and all integrated into one kind of urban design, which is why I think it's incredible. It's just thinking on that scale, that for a community to work, you have to have a school, you have to have green space, you have to have this, that, and I think that's what I'm really interested in. And also the scale of the buildings, it's great. It is great.
What's good people? If you enjoyed that, then listen to the full episode over in your favourite podcast streaming service. Or for more clips, just continue to explore the channel. Keep it easy.